Hi, I'm Lynn Woodland, author of Making Miracles. Create new realities for your life and our world. Welcome to my video blog, where every month I address a different piece of the journey of self-actualization as it relates to the month we're in. And I like to fit the message with the season, just because the cycles of nature so beautifully portray the whole archetypal dance between light and dark, life and death, yin and yang, and all together create a template for the whole of human experience, with each season lending itself to a different kind of spiritual work and personal growth. So here we are in March. The spring equinox, which happens around the third week in March, marks the point at which darkness of winter finally gives way to the light of the warmer months. And then every day for the next 6 months, light exceeds darkness. And as the world around us goes through this dramatic shift of focus from dark to light, we can't help but feel it. Just as the dark depths of winter urge us to hibernate and turn our attention inward, with the event of spring, we start to wake up and come out of ourselves and think about planting new seeds, literally and metaphorically. Now, in my own home state of Minnesota, as well as other northerly regions, March can be a bit of a tease. The light brings on dreams of warmth and growth, while the weather is likely to be burying us in the biggest snowdrifts of the year. So this month of March, which is too early in many places to get started on the garden, is the perfect time for the important work of taking stock of what we've grown over the past year. And this step is important, whether it relates to our personal growth or the vegetables we grew last year. If we don't stop and reflect, we're likely to just create the same thing over and over again, whether we like it or not. And this step is also crucial because what we give attention to, we tend to grow bigger. Consciousness is a tremendously powerful force, and simply by holding something in mind, we actually give it creative attention. Even scientists are realizing that experiment results have a way of reflecting the scientists' expectations. So seeing the glass half empty or half full isn't just an overused definition of optimism and pessimism. It's a powerfully creative act. The more we focus on the half-empty glass, the more likely we are to drain the half glass we started with down to nothing. And the opposite holds equally true. And reviewing the growth we've accomplished in the past really amplifies our power to experience accomplishment in the future. Just as dismissing how far we've come keeps us perpetually in a state of having a long way to go. So as you look back and take stock of the last year of your life, is it easy to see an abundance of positive growth and successes and forward movement? And if your answer is yes to that, then your next step is easy. Instead of focusing on the hurdles that you imagine lie ahead, consider what your life might look like in another year of just as much growth. Remember a year ago how you envisioned your future. In this last year, have there been blessings and leaps forward that you didn't expect? And if so, imagine the coming year filled with at least as many surprising turns for the better. Don't try to plan or guess what these are going to be. Just let yourself feel excited at the very thought of how much you're likely to accomplish based on how much you've achieved over the last year. But what if you look back and you don't see much positive growth? Or worse, it looks like you've taken a few steps backward. Well, first and foremost, know that the interpretation you give to your experience is a creative act, and it has a tremendous impact on what you create next. So if you feel that you've just stood still over the last year, consider that maybe you've stood still the way plants stand still. Have you ever watched a plant grow? You can stare at it all day and not see much happening, but that doesn't mean it's not growing. Meaningful growth sometimes requires time to develop in a way that's strong and lasting. Even dramatic change that comes quickly sometimes requires time for us to see it. I've witnessed any number of people release physical illnesses spontaneously, instantaneously, through spiritual work. One was a woman who had attended some of my spiritual healing services, and she shared that she had become free of a chronic asthmatic condition that she'd struggled with all her life without even realizing it was gone for many months. It wasn't until she became aware one day of being in an environment that would typically provoke an attack that she realized that she not only felt fine, but she hadn't had an attack in ages. She didn't notice the absence of her illness until it was long gone. And sometimes our expectations about how change happens won't let us accept or trust a change that happens too quickly or too easily. And our minds need time to grow into the change we've already made. So, what if you can't relate to the plant growth metaphor and you really believe your life has been stuck in a pit of stalled movement? There's still a bigger picture to be seen here that can provide momentum rather than inertia for your next season of growth. Just imagine all the ways that standing still is a powerful part of moving forward. Think of a seed lying dormant underground during the winter months, or a caterpillar motionless in its chrysalis. A seed growing in the wrong season would stand no chance of survival, just as a half-formed butterfly emerging too soon would never fly. And even though you may never see the bigger picture of why, consider that your still time was simply not the right season for forward momentum. And in the absence of visible change, ask yourself, what have you been incubating under the surface, out of sight? And just keep asking until you get an answer, because there is one. And if you think you've taken a step backward in your growth, consider how even backward movement can be a step in the right direction. Think of an archer pulling backward on a bow to create the momentum needed to propel an arrow, or a jumper taking steps backward before leaping. Think of how pruning a plant creates more lush growth. You know, I remember a time when the harder I worked, the more my business fell apart. I felt like a miserable failure whose talents were minimal and unwanted. It was just a horrible time of life, and I would certainly never choose to repeat it. But in retrospect, I would never have wanted to have skipped it either, because I'm not sure anything less dramatic would have gotten me to change directions and find the much different and better path that allowed me to excel and succeed. And even the very worst failures and losses, lapses and emotional or physical breakdowns all provide opportunities. They enable us, sometimes force us, to develop new priorities, to grow new strengths, and to find our buried vulnerability, tenderness, and receptivity. All of this allows rigid patterns of living and thinking to crumble so something more alive can grow. And as you appreciate the importance of what's fallen apart and acknowledge the things you've accomplished, you cultivate fertile ground for your next growing season. I'd love to hear your comments on any of this. And if you write to me at lynn@lynnwoodland.com, I'll send you a free download of a class on creating prosperity in our changing, uncertain times. And on my website, you can find all kinds of free downloads, recorded meditations, a free distance healing opportunity, and lots of other stuff. Now, for a deeper dive into this kind of spiritual work, check out my year-long Miracles course. It's a comprehensive coaching program of online materials and webinars and one-to-one coaching and lots more. So until next month, everyone, thank you so much and namaste.